So we're on the bottom of Peites Amid Beis, counting up 4 lines up from the bottom. Umitame law. So let's say this woman is married to a Kohen, and she's a Ketana, right? She's less than 12 years old. And the Brisa says, Mitame law. The Kohen, in tragic event that she dies, he will bury her and violate the Issa of Tumas Kohen. And this is now a support for Rav Chizda. Until this point in the Gemara, one barrage against Rav Chizda after another to try to establish that Ein Koch B'Yad Chacham Lakov Dopen. But now the Gemara is quoting the Brisa of Metamila in the case of Ishus the Rabbanan, which means a young girl whose father died and she was married off by her brother or by her mother. And when she dies, her husband, who's a Kohen, is Metamila, which is a violation of an Issa Doraisa, because the Torah doesn't recognize that marriage. There's no such thing as a Ketana getting married without her father. The only one who's allowed to be Metamiha is her father. And she doesn't have a father. The Brisa is allowing her husband, who's a Kohen, to be Metamila, to bury her. The Torah says that the Baal is not allowed to be Metamila because he's not married to her on a Doraisa. And the Rabbanan established that they are married and he will be Metamila and violate an Issa Doraisa. So we see clearly that Rav Chizda is right. Yesh Koch B'Yad Chachamim Lakar Dover Min HaTorah. And they could allow a Kohen to be Metame when the Torah would prohibit it, based on their recognition of this Ichus, of a Ketana Sheisiua Achia. Now, I'm not sure if this proof is what you call full proof. Let me try to present a counter argument. When the Torah says that a Kohen is enjoined from being Metame Lemes, that's not an absolute ironclad rule. And a raya that he will be Metame for any of his 7 krovim. So what does that mean? That if the Kohen has no excuse, whatever that word means, for being Metame Lemes, then he's desecrating his Kedushas Kahuna. The Tumah that he contracts is a desecration of the sanctity of Kahuna. And as you and I know, the higher you are on the level of sanctity, the more you're sensitive to that which could disrupt and desecrate that sanctity. So for the sanctity of a guy, 7 mitzvahs will upset his sanctity of Tzelem Elokim. In the case of Israel, it is 613 methods of sanctity. In between, we have what's called a ger tosha. Within Klal Yisrael, we have a hierarchy of kedusha. So let's say, John, you're a Levi, right? You're allowed to be Matami to a mess. You don't have the same Kedusha as a Kohen as Don. For Don, that which upsets and undermines his Kedusha would not undermine your Kedusha. So the whole essence of the prohibition of a Kohen to be Matami Lemes is because it undermines, it vitiates, it's antithetical to Kedushas Kahuna on that level of Kedushas Kahuna. In the case of a Kohen Gadol has a higher level of Kedusha than a Kohen Hedjot, he is sensitive to any contamination whatsoever, even for his 7 close relatives. And then you can talk about a Nazir and so forth. Once the Rabbanan said we recognize this marriage, then it no longer is an antithetical entity in which Tumah, for the sake of burying the dead, is antithetical to Kedushas Kahuna. And just like the Torah recognizes the leniency or the permission of a Kohen to be Matami to a 7 Krovim because he's doing it for the sake of burying the mess, one of his close relatives. He's not in any way trying to disrupt and contaminate his sanctity. So too, the Rabbanan extended that the same mechanics, the same structure and framework applies in Ishus the Rabbanan. He is burying his wife. We, the Rabbanan, recognize that marriage. And therefore, he's not violating and vitiating his Kedushas Kuhu. So it's not an expression of Yesh Koch Biat Chachamim Lak or Dov Min Torah. The Chacham are creating Ishus. That's not an Akiras Dov Min Torah. Once they create the Ishus, it's no longer a violation of his Kedushas Kahuna when he buries his wife, even though his wife is only his wife midrabbanan. And this would be a case in which a drabbanan has an impact on the Torah. So let's say, again, not to equate the two, but let's say I acquire chametz through a drabbanan. There's something called Dalet Amos, right? That the Rabbanan created a kinyan by which you acquire ownership on something that's within a circumference of 4 amos. Could be that once having done so, if you acquire ownership over the chametz through a kinyan d'Rabbanan, you now violate bal yirah bal yimatza if you own that chametz on Pesach on a doraisa level, because the Torah doesn't want you to own chametz, and the Rabbanan said that this is an ownership. The Rabbanan are not coming to be Oker Dov Min Torah. They are creating a new mechanism of ownership. Here too, the Rabbanan are creating a new mechanism, an enterprise of Ishus. He is married to her, she is his wife, and Memela, he's allowed to be Metamila, even though he's a Kohen. It's simply a result or an application of the marriage relationship which the Rabbanan created. And even if the Torah doesn't recognize that marriage, it makes no difference because it's no longer a chilul kedushas kahuna when he does it for the sake of Ishus, in order for the respect to his late wife. I have a friend, he's actually my wife's cousin. His name is Rav Elio Dessler. He lives in Cleveland, Ohio. And he was on a trip to Lithuania. And he sent me a picture of a kever. There still is a Beis HaKvaros in Slobodka. I'm not sure why the Nazis didn't destroy it. And the kever has a picture of the girl who died, who's buried. It's like built into the tombstone. And she was 11 years old. Her name was Berzon. And he sent it. Bet Reish Zayin Vav Nun, exactly the way we spell that name. We were never able to track it down and figure out if she's related to us. But the name Berzon, is not a common name. So the man who's a Kohen wants to bury his wife. Okay, she's 11 years old. Is that a Chilul Kedushas Kahuna? Now, I'm not sure if this is what the Gemara is going to say. I wish I could fit it into the language of the Gemara, but I'm hard pressed to do so. The Gemara says, Mishum dahavile mes mitzvah. If a Kohen encounters a corpse, a Jewish corpse, and there's no one available to bury that corpse, even if that person who died is not in any way related to the Kohen is allowed, he is obligated to bury the mess. And again, I would insist that the logic is that's not called Chilul Kedushas Kahuna. He's doing it for the great benefit, the chesed, shalemes, of burying a meis mitzvah. Why is this case a case of a mes mitzvah? Mes mitzvah means there's no one available to bury the dead. There's no Chevra Kadisha around, but here there's a Chevra Kadisha. So the Gemara asks, so we have a mes mitzvah. Why is this young girl who died now, why is it a mes mitzvah? Hatanya ezu mes mitzvah, kol she'en lo kovrim. If there's no one there to bury the dead, that's a mes mitzvah. And the Kohen will step up to the plate if no one else is available, and he'll bury the dead without delay. We're not going to wait and see, go see if you can find a member of the Chevra Kadisha. Right now, there's no one there. Koreh, the Kohen should yell out, Yachirim onim. If anyone could hear his voice and they could respond, first responders, ein zeh mes mitzvah. Now here, a man lost his wife who's a katana. There are plenty of people who are available to bury her. She's not a corpse laying out in the middle of the desert. So why is the Kohen allowed to be metallic? And the Gemara answers, Hachinami kevan de lo yarisle karya below anu. This is a very difficult piece of Gemara. The best I can hope to do is translate the Gemara literally, and then we'll see if we can make any sense out of it. Gemara says no one's going to answer his call. He's going to yell and scream, the husband, the ein onen. Why? Kevan de lo yarsi. The law is, again, this is the Rabbanan, that if this young girl dies, the husband will inherit her. Now, that's not a Doraisa halacha. That's based on Hefker Bezdin Hefker. On a Doraisa level, she's not married to him. When she dies, there's an entire Seder Yerusha. For example, let's say she has no father, then her brother will inherit. She has no brother, then a cousin will inherit, etc., etc. But the Rabbanu will mafkia the Yerusha from every other Yoresh, with the exception of the Baal. He's the only one who's going to be, in quotation marks, interested in burying the dead. Is Karya Philo Anu. Even she'enam yorshimos. I don't believe for one moment that we can take this Gemara literally and just simply translate it. What do you mean, karya v'lo anu? Just because they don't inherit her? What are they, angry at the Baal? They're saying, look, the Rabbanan established that we can't inherit her, and only you can inherit her. Therefore, we're not going to respond. You bury her. Sounds cruel, no? Now, some of us are going to say we're talking about a financial arrangement. Burial is an expensive enterprise. You know, you got to buy land, or you have to have a plot, and you have to have a burial, and this, you know, you have to pay the Chevra Kaddish. It's a whole. So why should I pay if the Rabbanan have established that I can't inherit? I would like to take her estate, her monies, and use it to bury her. But I'm not going to get access to those monies. You're going to get access as her husband. You bury him. He says, "Kivan sheyesh la ba hakrovim yomru she is asker b'kruvasa." Lefichach he nechsheves k'meis mitzvah. Okay, well, so that piece of Gemara has to be analyzed. Let's go on and see if we can find another proof to support Rav Chizda. Yesh kach b'yad chacham lakar d'menanto. V'ocheles begino truma. She's a Bas Yisrael. She's an orphan. She's married off to a Kohen by her brother. And she eats truma. Now, if a Bas Yisrael is married to a Kohen, she eats truma, kinyan kaspa. But this woman, on a Doraisa level, is not married to a Kohen. Only the Rabbanan she's married to a Kohen. And yet she's allowed to eat truma. You're talking about a chiv misa b'dei shamayim for a zara eating truma. Her status is the same as a zara on a Doraisa level. How do the Rabbanan have the authority to permit this girl to eat truma? And my answer before, with regard to Tumah, Latami, Latamaria, is not relevant now. Because the Rabbanan can't take someone who's not a Kohen and make him into a Kohen. The Torah prohibits me from eating truma. Now the Rabbanan are going to say, whoa, you're allowed to eat truma. You're a Kohen. What do you mean I'm a Kohen? I'm not a Kohen. I'll sign a check for $500 and maybe you'll make me a Kohen. But, you know. Yesh kach b'yad chachamim, says Rav Chizda, lakar dov min haTorah. The Rabbanan, in the context of this marriage, which they want to recognize as a marriage, are going to allow a woman who's a zara, she's a zar, to eat truma. And the Rabbanan have the authority to do so. Really plain. Gemara says no. The Brisa would not allow her to eat truma. No way, no how. The Rabbanan don't have the authority to do so. But rather be truma d'Rabbanan. Let's just quickly go over the laws of truma as far as the Doraisa and d'Rabbanan is concerned. We have the sheet of all the Rishonim and then the sheet of the Rambam. all the Rishonim assume that Midoraisa Truma only applies to the 5 species of grains and 2 trees. Those are olives and grapes. All other fruit trees, according to all Rishonim, are D'Rabbanan. The Rambam extended it to all fruit trees. But everybody agrees that vegetables and legumes, which is called Yerokos and Kitnios, are D'Rabbanan. Why? Because the Torah mentions only Dagan and Tirosh v'Yitzhak, which the Rambam understands in a broader way. Which certainly would not include neither Yerokos nor Kitnios. But we can go beyond that. Truma, even on Dagan, even on the 5 species of grains, is D'Rabbanan Bisman Hazeh, because we don't have what's called Yoshvel Oleha. So one of the conditions that has to be met for a Chiyuv Truma D'Oraisa no longer can be applicable. That situation might change, hopefully, in the near future. But right now, Truma Bisman Hazeh is D'Rabbanan. When the Brisa allows this young girl who's married to a Kohen to eat Truma, it's only Truma D'Rabbanan. And here, even the Bar Plukta, those who reject Rav Chisda, concede that we apply the principle of Heimam Uveheimam, that the Rabbanan created this status called Truma D'Rabbanan. They will tell us and determine who is allowed to eat that Truma D'Rabbanan. And they established that a woman who's a Ketana married to a Kohen is allowed to eat Truma D'Rabbanan. And they can do so, according to everyone. Even if I reject Rav Chisda, ain't koch v'yad chacham lakar domin Torah. But the Truma is only D'Rabbanan. Like the Gemara says in Pesachim, we don't trust a katan in Jewish law. That's halacha, a dorais halacha. A katan comes forward and he testifies that this bias is baduk. It's been checked for chametz. So you have a maskir and a socher. You have the renter and the owner. And the renter wants to know, does he have to do b'dika on this house? And a katan comes forward and testifies that the maskir did the b'dika. The maskir is no longer available for question. We'll rely on the katan against the Torah law because heimam ruva heimam. The Rabbanan required b'dika, and they said we could rely on this katan that he could testify that the b'dika was done. Kidasu kidu. So Tosas asks the following question. I don't get it. Why does the Gemara need to talk about Truma D'Rabbanan? Let's talk about Truma D'Oraisa. She's not allowed to eat Truma D'Oraisa because she's not a Bas Kohen? What are you talking about? She's partner from all mitzvahs HaTorah. She hasn't yet reached maturity. She's a minor. True, we don't let her eat chazit treif, but that's only D'Rabbanan. We're training her. So in this case of a ketana, even if the truma would be doraisa, her prohibition for eating the truma is only D'Rabbanan because she's a ketana. The Tosas quotes a Gemara later on that says Bezdin mitzuvin lafrisha, that if a katan is eating something that's not kosher, or in this case, a zar that's eating truma, Bezdin are obligated to get involved and stop, prevent the katan or the ketana from violating an isi. So what? So you see that although the katan per se, in and of herself or himself, is not obligated in mitzvahs because he's a katan, she's a ketana, but Bezdin are obligated to see to it that this katan or this ketana will not violate the Torah law. So therefore, the only way that the Gemara is able to justify the brisa that allows her, this ketana, to eat truma because she's married to a kohen is with truma d'Rabbanan. If it's truma d'Rabbanan, then we can apply the principle of Hema Amru v'Hema Amru. The Rabbanan who prohibited truma d'Rabbanan will permit it in the case of a marriage d'Rabbanan. But if you're talking about truma d'Oraisa, then for those who reject Rav Chisda, Ein Koch B'Yad Chacham L'Akadom Min HaTorah, Bezdin would not be allowed to stand idly, passively while she eats truma d'Oraisa, because Bezdin Mitzuvin Lafrisha. And the only answer that we have as an option is truma d'Rabbanan. Kohen shekibel truma uba adam acher v'achla chayav l'shalom lekohen shir truma v'tosefes chomesh keren v'chomesh. And this is a parsha vayikra chav beis v'ish ki yochal kodesh v'shkaga v'yasaf chamichiso alav v'nasan lekohenes hakodesh. Which means that the person who ate truma has to take chulin to the value of the truma that he ate. He delivers it to the kohen, and that's called the nasan lakohen es hakodesh. It's a davar aroy lios kodesh. Peiros of chulin will now replace the peiros of truma that she ate or he ate. And those peiros that are now being returned to the kohen as compensation become truma. Tashman, with this we'll end for today. The Brisa says that Ochal Truma Tmeya, what happens if a person accidentally, he's not a Kohen, and he ate Truma Tmeya? Mishalim, he has to pay peiros to the Kohen, Chulin Tahore. Now, offhand, this makes no sense. He ate Truma Tmeya. Truma Tmeya is not worth anything. I mean, it's worth something. You can burn it and use it for fuel, but it doesn't have a value of fruits. And now he has to replace it with Chulin Tahori, which has the full value because it's Tar. But this has to do with a sugya called Lefi Mida B'Shalom, that the Kohen, when he gets compensated, he's not getting compensated in monetary terms, in terms of the market value of his truma, but rather in volume. That's called Lefi Mida. And if the Yisrael ate truma, even if the truma was tmeya, he still is obligated to replace that truma, and in this case with truma tahu. So Mirza Hashem will pick this up tomorrow. Let me take this opportunity to wish you a great day, and thank you again for joining. Sorry, I'm. So it says here, Ochal Truma Tmeim Mishalem Chulin Tahorim. It says Madua Ein Liftar Esa Ochel Truma Tmeim Tashlum Vitin Kimlev the Rabbimine. These questions are a different question. We should apply the principle of Kimlev the Rabbimine. And even Chayve Mitzvah Shogegin, according to Abaye, Ksubas Taflamed, are potter from Tashlumin. And the answer is that Truma Yesh Gilui Mefurash B'Torah L'Chayv Tashlum V'Yosaf Chamisha So Olav Tashlum Shel Truma Boin L'Kapara, and we don't apply Kim Leib D'Ram. Now he quotes a machlokas here in Bishas Hafrasha Nasim HaTashlumin Truma or Rak Bishas Nasina L'Kohen. At what moment in time does the Truma that's being compensating the Kohen, it becomes Truma? Is it the moment that he sets it aside, or only when he delivers it into the hands of the Kohen? So that apparently is a sugya in the Yerushalmi and 2 days in the Torah's Kohen. Now, Shilem Chulin Tmeim, if he went ahead and instead of paying and replacing the Truma with Tahorim, he replaced it with Tmeim, Sumchas Homishum Rav Meir, B'Shogeg. If he thought that these payers were Tahorim and he made a mistake, it turned out to be Tmeim Tashlumin, then we recognize his compensation. And the payers Tmeim are Truma. But if the Mazid, he knew very well that these are payers Tmeim, then the Rabbanan penalized him, and Ein Tashlumav Tashlum. Chacham Omrim Echad Zeh v'Echad Zeh Tashlumav Truma Tashlumu Chozer U'Mishalim Chulin Tahor. This halacha that because Bezdin Mitzvah Mafrisha, therefore in Truma D'Oraisa, there's no way of justifying in the case of a marriage to Rabbanon allowing her to eat Truma D'Oraisa because Bezdin Mitzvah Mafrisha. Not sure I understand why that's so, because Bezdin still has the authority to lift that halacha, that requirement of Bezdin Mitzvah Lafrisha. Unless you say that Bezdin Mitzvah Lafrisha itself is Dorais, which I'm not sure I understand why that's so. For that, maybe you have to see the Sugi on Daf Kuf Yud Daled. Maybe it's derived from the beginning of Parshas Emor, where the Torah says that Emor ve'amarta lahaziris ha'gedolim alaktana. Maybe that's a Dorais. Okay, then this is where we're going to stop. Thank you so much.